to a little push from Hooty, Eda's gone on a journey of self-discovery that's filled us in on the major events in her life. Like Luz, I'm always curious about Eda's backstory, and this episode delivers. Because there's so much to sink our fangs into this week, I'm going to experiment and split this breakdown into parts. In this video, we're going to focus on Eda and the Owl Beast's past and future transformations, as well as a mysterious cloaked figure known as the Collector. You're watching WhitneyVision, and this is part 1 of our Knock Knock Knockin on Hooty's door breakdown. This is your spoiler warning. If you haven't watched this week's episode yet, come back when you've successfully confronted the Owl Beast. Okay, before we get into Eda, I've got to bring it up. Lumity is official, you guys! I'm gonna share all my thoughts on this in part 2 of this breakdown, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled for it. Now, on to Eda. Ever since Eda learned of Bellis' plans from Rain, she's been burning the candle at both ends to power up and plot a way to defeat the evil Emperor. Like any good friend, Hooty knows that rest is an important step to training effectively, and sets out to help Eda recharge. But the sleeping nettles he spikes her cookies with end up causing bonkers vivid dreams. Instead of drifting off into a sound slumber, Eda is forced once again to face down the Owl Beast head-on. This time, however, Eda is armed with more than just willpower to stave off the demon. After coming to terms with her curse, forgiving her sister, accepting her mom's apology, reconnecting with Rain, and living without powers, Eda has made some serious emotional progress, and she isn't afraid to confront the beast within. We see a couple formative traumatic memories from Eda's past involving her curse. The first is presumably the last night Eda saw her father before running away from home. On this night, the Clawthorns were preparing to wish the father of the family, Del, goodbye and good luck before he set off on a trip to the Mandible. That's another word for jaw, and based on Del saying that he'll be gone for a while, this location on the Titan must have some larger importance down the line. When Del sets off a party popper to say adios to his family in style, the fireworks frighten the Owl Beast within Eda, causing her to transform and lash out. She claws out Del's left eye, meaning he's probably gonna be rocking a sweet eye patch when we eventually meet him in the present. Since Gwendolyn has Lilith call for the Healing Coven to tend to Del's wounds, it's possible that the responding witch might have checked up on Eda's curse after aiding Del, and this is the same night that Eda runs away from home. This means that Eda likely hasn't ever spoken to her father about the attack, and might be holding on to the guilt of hurting him without knowing whether or not he actually blames her. Adding in any prolonged potential guilt of running away, it's clear why Eda has a hard time bringing herself to see her father again. Next, we're taken to the moment when Rain broke it off with Eda. I get the feeling that, while this plays off the flashback from last week, this is actually a different time Eda and Rain have hung out at this location. Mostly because I can't see Rain going from so lovey-dovey to confident in breaking up over the course of a few minutes. In this scene, Rain confronts Eda about her lies and her lack of openness, presumably because she has a history of keeping her walls up as an attempt to ignore and minimize her curse. Rain ultimately tells her that they should both see other people. Instead of letting Rain in when she starts to morph, she once again pushes them away, refuses their help, and alienates them further. But after reliving both of these experiences with the knowledge she has now, Eda realizes that none of these bad things that happened to her were solely her fault. She's angry at the Owl Beast for stealing these moments from her, which for Eda is huge progress. She's been so stubborn and insistent about taking care of herself, keeping the curse at bay, and not burdening other people with her problems, that she never stopped to realize that she didn't need to punish herself with isolation for something that was out of her control. She doesn't deserve to be alone just because she's cursed. And although she thought she was making sacrifices to keep her loved ones safe, she was actually just keeping everyone at an arm's length. Realizing this is huge for Eda because she's finally able to forgive herself for all the ways she hasn't been able to protect others. And once she's able to forgive herself, she realizes that she's actually able to forgive the Owl Beast as well. Because at the end of the day, it isn't really the Owl Beast's fault either. The owl within Eda feels just as trapped together as she does. I believe that this next scene is one of the Owl Beast's memories, and that Eda is experiencing her side for the very first time, which is ultimately what propels Eda towards empathy. We see the Owl Beast captured by a cloaked figure, who laughs maniacally and tells her that she can't run anymore and that it's over. In the credits, the Eclipse Robe Lady is billed as the Collector and voiced by Frida Wolf. The Collector captures the Owl Beast in a net, and although she's able to break free, her wings begin to disintegrate as she flies. She plunges into the sea and her body transforms into a cursed scroll. The scroll is then picked up by a salesman from the night market and is presumably sold to Lilith not long after. This is a fascinating origin story for the Owl Curse, and I have so many questions. Who's the Collector? How does she turn beast demons into physical curses? Is she still out there doing this? How long ago did this happen? My assumption is that the Collector is traveling across the Boiling Isles, capturing magical creatures and performing some kind of spell on them that removes them from their physical body, transforms them into a curse, and ultimately traps them inside an unlucky Witcher demon's mind. But if she's still out there, dear God, I hope Belos doesn't get a hold of her. Can you imagine the entire Emperor's Coven being turned into a tricked-out, cursed army? Terrifying. I also have a theory that the Collector might be Creepy Luz. What if she found a way to transform herself into anything she wants through these curses, and is changed into Luz's doppelganger for nefarious purposes? Could her Collector moniker come from the vast collection of shapeshifting forms she has at her disposal? This would be a great way to tie in the new antagonist with one that's currently circulating the orbit of the larger story. Could she also be Hunter's mother? Perhaps part of Belos' motivation is finding a way to open a portal and rescue his lost sister who somehow got trapped in the human realm. Alternatively, I think she could potentially also be a young Odalia, since the eclipse and crescents are similar to Amity's new jewelry. Prior to this episode, a lot of fans thought that promo images of the Collector were secretly Amity because of this connection. But this does seem like more than a coincidence, so unless Amity becomes a rogue time-traveling demon wrangler, it might be that this connection is familial. Young Odalia did have a suspicious face on when she saw that Lilith successfully cursed Eda. Also, did you notice the new Titan skull featured during this section of Eda's dream? You can see a skull that looks nothing like the one we're used to. In fact, it kinda looks like it belongs to a horse. A gigantic horse. Was this the Titan's mighty steed? Or is it simply another Titan that has nothing to do with the one we're familiar with? Will Eda have to travel to this new set of islands to find more answers about her curse? And will the Horse Titan be resurrected when its rider returns on the Day of Unity? I have so many questions, but hopefully they'll all be answered in future eps. While Eda is sitting on the shore watching the owl beast struggle to fly, she notices a red string connecting both of them. In Chinese and Japanese folklore, an invisible red string of fate is said to connect those that are destined to meet for a life of greatness. Usually this is interpreted as romantic fate, but there's room for other relationships to be bound by these threads. When Eda tugs the string, the owl beast crashes into the sea and slowly makes her way to the shore defeated. As she struggles to regain her strength, Eda realizes that she isn't simply trapped in her mind with this feathery little nightmare. The owl beast is also kinda stuck here with her too. In that moment, she decides to finally make peace with her curse. She knows that she can't defeat it and she no longer wants to. Instead, she offers the owl beast a little slurp from a bottle of elixir that washes up on the beach and promises to start working with her to heal. I personally resonated a lot with this development because this is a perfect depiction of what living with a personality disorder is like for me. If you don't know, I have BPD, and it kinda exactly feels like I'm constantly fighting a giant owl inside my head. I always feel like there's two different parts of my brain. Whitney who loves her friends and dogs and cartoons, and Owl Beast Whitney who sucks and ruins everything for everyone. And I went through the exact cycle that Eda did in this ep before I found acceptance with my mental illness. At first, I honestly thought that I was just a really horrible person and really bad at everything. I spent over 20 years blaming myself without really knowing what was wrong with me and bouncing between misdiagnoses and treatments that failed to help, until I was able to get properly diagnosed in 2018. And once I found out that all my problems were caused by a chemical imbalance taking over my mind hole, buddy, I was mad. I was like, none of this is my fault. I'm a sick person. Why does everybody hate me for something that I can't control? Why is my BPD in charge of my brain and I'm not? Why does my BPD get to decide every single move I make? Why can't I just haunt it for a change? But blaming the curse itself doesn't actually heal you or help you grow. You can't change or learn or evolve without radical acceptance of your flaws. In my case, that meant making peace with the demon that takes over my brain most of the time. I'm never gonna be 100% healthy, and that's been the hardest part to embrace. There's no finish line. I'm not gonna wake up one day completely cured. I'm gonna have to take my elixir every single day for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna have to continue to find new ways to love the worst parts about myself. And most days, I'm gonna have a really hard time doing that. But accepting responsibility for myself and my curse has been the biggest adventure of my life, and it looks like Eda is just about to start on one herself. Man, I wish that as I was saying this, the BPD part of my brain would transform me into a cool winged goddess, because that's exactly what happens to Eda. As soon as she embraces the darkest part of herself, she's suddenly able to unlock a huge upgrade to her powers. Instead of simply being Eda the Owl Lady, she is full-on Eda the Owl Lady now. When she works with her curse, she finds that she's able to transform back and forth between her witch and harpy forms at will. What is a harpy, you ask? So glad you brought it up. Harpies are creatures from ancient mythology depicted as birds with feminine faces. Originally, harpies were described as beautiful, and pottery from the time usually featured lovely winged women. But over time, writers began calling them ugly creatures with pale, hungry faces, sharp talons, and evil behavior. Dante's Inferno places harpies in the seventh circle of hell, where those who have taken their own lives are being eternally punished. Harpies were thought to be spirits of the wind, and their name means snatchers or swift robbers. In addition to personifying the destructive nature of wind, they also stole food from hungry victims. When someone disappeared way back in the day, instead of starting a true crime podcast to look for them, people theorized that harpies had carried them off to be tortured. And if you haven't put it together yet, this is how the term harpy became a derogatory term to use against real women. We can thank Shakespeare for this one, folks. The bard himself was the first to refer to a predatory woman as a harpy, and now F-boys all over the internet use this term to yell at me for talking about Rick and Morty. Isn't language fun? In our case, though, we are strictly referring to the mythological creatures when discussing Eda's new harpy form, so don't get it twisted. Eda said it herself. Harpy Eda is hot as hell. Baby girl can get it. Just saying, Rain might have some reconsidering to do on their breakup once they see Harpy Eda bust into the Emperor's dungeons to rescue them looking like a goddamn snack. But looking cute aside, Eda's transformation is totally badass. Instead of just her sweet little face on the owl beast's body, Eda has become one with the owl beast. Her body is mostly the same shape as her witch form, but now she has talons and gigantic owl feet. She also has huge wings that match her hair. Eda can fly on her own without the use of her magic staff, which I can already tell is going to come in handy. And right now, we don't know exactly what other powers she'll be able to hack into, but my guess is that we'll see them displayed in battle by the end of the season. Since we know that the destruction of magic is a side effect of her curse, perhaps this form will allow her to target her nasty and destructive nullification powers. Personally, I'm all about watching her steal food from unsuspecting witches, but I'm sure her actual powers will be way cooler than just that. Also, will our gal Lilith be getting a harpy form as well? Actually, how does that work? We've been calling her the Raven Beast, but now that we know that the curse involves a once independent demon, does that mean that she's attached to the same owl creature? Or was there another raven demon wrapped into that scroll? If both Clawthorn sisters are linked to the same creature, does that mean that they can DNA digivolve to fuse into one ultimate Harpy Clawthorn? Oh man, that'll be a rockin' episode. These are just some of my thoughts on Eda's transformation, but I want to know what you guys think in the comments. The next part of our breakdown will be out later tonight or tomorrow, so please hit like and subscribe to WhitneyVision to be the first to see me gush about Lumity. I'm Scarlet Wit, and you're watching WhitneyVision.